Yeah, just want to check in, let you guys know that my cover's still good down here. I've got these 21st century rubes thinking I'm one of them, so everything is copacetic, standard check-in, and gotta go. Hey everybody, as promised, here we are for the live stream, and won't get started on much. I might have to turn the air conditioner on. It does get warm down here in Florida, but right now I've got it off for sound quality. So if you guys can hear me, just go ahead and check in, let me know. I'll be backing up on the iPad here, which I do have the volume turned down on it all the way, so we shouldn't be getting an echo off of that. And yes, I'm a nerd. I have an actual Bluetooth Star Trek communicator.
Yes, Captain. Enterprise. Here.
Yeah, I'll talk at you later. Oh, well, at first I'd had this great idea for all kinds of things to do, and then I thought, you know what? Let's just talk about whatever comes to mind, and I'll be reading the feed here. And of course, all my great plans, and I put the feed over here and the camera over there because I'm that kind of genius. It's how my mind works. Hello, Joseph and Al. I did manage to collect enough pictures that hopefully this evening I'll toss out another, probably at least for a while, the last viewers builds. This won't be in any particular order. I got a lot of hodgepodge of stuff, mostly airplanes. But anyway, I thought I would show off the Tremulous fighter that this is just sort of standing there. The only thing that's been glued together are the shell halves and the nose cones just resting there. The whole thing's put together. But this was actually an idea that Tremulous, who was actually one of Detroit's top car designers, came up with during World War II. For a rocket-powered interceptor, which I just think is awesome. It kind of forsaged things like the Beaumark, except that had a pilot in it. Hello. Asbo, you made it great. Paul, welcome aboard. Steffi, Charles, hello, good evening. Real quick, guys, if you would, just type in where you're at, just so have an idea. Put a few toys on the table to talk about, and I'm really wondering if I should move that camera over here. I'm going to be swinging back and forth. I just didn't think that through too well, did I? Well, I think the idea was I was just planning to look at the phone and talk to you guys. I put it way back so you can sort of see a little bit of the shed, a little bit of the Tarbus. Plus, apparently, the closer I get, the prettier I don't. Plymouth, Seattle. Oh, Pasco. You're just down the road. I'm up here in Duval. Manchester, England. All right. Kennecut, Florida. Hey, Pursuit here in Florida. Hey, John. And John, once again, thanks for the music. That's not an ABBA reference. He sent me some music CDs. Joe in Jersey. Hey. I don't know if you... John? Oh, okay. I didn't... Okay. Simi Valley. All right. I was talking about Jersey this morning when I was talking about the Battle Midway. We were talking about Dick Best, who was the famous dive bomber pilot. One of only two men in history ever to dive bomb. Him and Rusty Clyce, the only two people ever successfully dive bombed two carriers in a day. And he was from Jersey, and I listened to him speak, and it was just kind of funny to listen to him talk about it with that Jersey accent about not to mention the World War II metaphors and everything. I mean, I wanted to find, but I could not find that interview with him. It was on one of the documentaries, and he's wearing a bow tie. And it was done not long before he passed away. The guy lived to be like 91. And he was the one that had the chest infection from the caustic soda. But right after the Battle of Midway, it knocked him out of the rest of the war. Like he hadn't already done enough. But just like, fear the man in a bow tie. For a man who wears a bow tie fears little. Renton, Washington. Okay. Plymouth. Bletchley, England. Sarah. Justin, you made it. Excellent. I was with you. If tell her I said hi. Hi, Leah. That's one of the really great things. Hey, Douglas. One of the really great things. Julie. Oh, well, those early days, those planes did go down a lot. Um, One of the nice things about the channel being this size is we're a small enough group that you get to recognize names and everything, and it's nice to kind of form a connection. Uh, so let's see. All right, looking great, looking good, looking good. So I more or less put the Saturn V on the desk just as a prop, but I do need to get onto it. It's ready to get sanded down. This actually has a coat of the white Krylon, but then that just has like a primer. But of course, I've got a bunch of rough edges I got to sand down. I bought those aftermarket decals from Cult TV Man up in Georgia, and they're not cheap, but man, he gives you everything. I got them here somewhere, but he gives you all the little writing and stuff that's on it. Really, really nice. Hey, Chris, from Ohio, and what is that? Osso? Is that the name of that hobby shop you always go to? But I did shoot some more drone footage today in the rain. This is my little DJI Spark. If you're not into drones and you want to get into them, now I'll put the red dots on it. This DJI Spark is a good one to start with. They're about 350 bucks, and for about another 150, you can get the extender, which I highly recommend, partly because it has control sticks, because trying to fly these things off your iPad or your telephone can get a little tricky. That's how I lost my first one. And it's somewhere rotting away in the woods of Montana, the wilds of Montana. Dean's Hobby Shop in Owasso, Michigan. Yeah, Chris always includes that in his text. So I'm like, yeah, I'll take a second to plug it. Also, okay, one of you sent me a link to an eBay store that had just recently acquired about 500 vintage kits, and I didn't write it down, but I was looking at it just before I came here, and I wanted to mention that because they do have some interesting stuff. So if you guys are looking to buy, somebody put it in the comment section. Ah, Hans Peter, you made it. Phil Coleman. Oh, as good as it gets, or something like that. It's a eBay store, but they got all kinds of, I guess it was an estate sale or something. But they picked up like 500 vintage kits, and it might be for you guys who are interested, that might be worth looking at. She's sure a bit, well. Oh, John Parker, yes. Justin's talking about John Parker. He's another person that does histories on kit model companies. I've actually watched his videos before doing some of mine. We've both done Airfix videos. He's does a very different style. He's got a lot of great information. There was one thing that one or two things that he had on his I couldn't verify, so I didn't put him in mine. But he's another great source. He's really into this, and he just sits back and goes through all the kits, and very, very easygoing, easy to keep up with. And I don't actually use the information, but when he says something, it gives me something to look up, something I didn't know. And he covers stuff I don't, because a lot of these companies, I'm talking about the history of the company, and I'm not going to go through every kit because some of them have 500-600 kits. But he'll go through a lot of the kits, and he knows the different packaging because he was buying this stuff at the time. So he's a great resource. John Parker, he's on YouTube, and he's done several companies. He and I also both did, ironically, a rather obscure company. We both did, I think it was Adams. And I've gotten some conflicting data on some of these companies ever since I've done the videos. And it's really hard to know what's, I hate to put anything that's wrong. And that's why, if you go back, I've had a lot of updates and corrections videos to fix something, because it's like anything else in history. Some of the information is just going to be wrong. Let's see. Let's read the F4F all day lunch. Rare Plane Detective, yeah. Hey, Brian. From Pilot Son. Mark, welcome aboard. Barry from Fort Lauderdale. Oh, I have some sad Fort Lauderdale news. Dublin. All right, there you go. All right, we've got folks from Liverpool and near Dublin. Wonderful. I love that. Fort Lauderdale. Yes. One of my favorite overnights. My route structure frequently does Fort Lauderdale and West Palm overnights, and I have friends in Fort Lauderdale. We go out. I hit the ground running when I do a Fort Lauderdale overnight. I'd get to the hotel, get out of my uniform, get my stuff together. There's a place called Markham Park on the west end of Fort Lauderdale, out in Weston, Florida. It's west of Fort Lauderdale, straight out like you're heading for the Gulf. And it's basically the last thing you hit before you are literally you go past the tree line. That's the Everglades. They have a real big park out there. They have an RC field that I used to go out and fly in, have a card for it and everything. Unfortunately, I just learned that due to the beer bug, my airlines had to cut back, and my base will not be doing any Fort Lauderdale overnights for a while. So it's like they just gutted my reason for going to work. I go to work so that I can make money to overnight in Fort Lauderdale to go fly at Markham Park. That's how my brain works. And when they took that away from me, like, oh my God, now I'm just flying for the money. Import fee 60. Yeah, I tell you what. Hey, Steve, good to see you. Alessandro, welcome aboard. From Bremen. So we got Germany, Ireland, and England, and the good old USA. And let's see, Fort Worth, there we go. Love Texas. Oh, you've got a 124 scale. Where are you going to put that beastie? Captain Ridley shooting project secret. Oh, cool. But there's also a RC field out by West Palm that's open to the public. Markham Park, you have to pay to get in, but it's open to the public. But you have to get an annual card. But there's a little one out in West Palm that we found that's just it's open to the public. And I was I made my B-25 that I later cratered and rebuilt. But hey, William, nice to see you. Thank you for everything, by the way. I'm using that thing you made for me. My wife didn't get it at first, and I had to explain it to her, but she was like, "Oh, okay." I was like, hey, the UK. I understand that in the United States it didn't be this way until recently, but I don't know if you guys fly RCs, but I understand that in like New Zealand, the UK. I don't know about Canada. You actually have to have some kind of license or certificate to fly radio control models, which now, unfortunately, for drones, you have to have in the USA, and I have one, but which has accomplished absolutely nothing. But let's see. Hey, Gabriel. So, anywho, haven't even touched the Kate. I just got it up here as a prop, but it's the little wing folder. It does something I wanted to show you guys, though. I was talking earlier this morning, I don't know if you got to see this morning's show, but how I bought so many SBDs when I was doing the Midway documentary. And if you notice, these things have a very, a lot of light over here. Let me just move the camera forward some. Careful, everybody close your eyes, you're gonna get shaky cam. Yep, lowest production values on the internet. Proud of it. What I did was like this one is glued with the wheels up, the bomb on it, and the die breaks open, although one of them's laying over there. But you'll notice that the canopies are all frosted over and everything. It's just covered in dull coat. There's no prop on it, because when you start green screening stuff and everything, anything that'll reflect light becomes problematic. And I kept a very simplistic basic markings on it so that you can reuse them. This one has the single 30 caliber, which actually by then most of them had twin 30s. But I just thought I'd show you, this is not going to win any prizes. This is strictly made for camera work. If you're going to film your models, it does have retractable. I actually tried to do a retractable gear scene. I filmed this. Oops. I filmed this upside down. Come on, folks. I filmed this upside down, and I forget what I used, but got to just let gravity drop the gear and tried to slow the film down to get a gear retracting scene. It was not a thing of beauty. If you're going to use for like video work or something, I would say don't hyper detail your model. It's going to be a lost cause. You want the colors to contrast very well. Cover it in flat paint, and have as few protrusions as possible, because these things are going to get knocked around. I guess you guys have probably seen some movie props, like if you go to a Planet Hollywood or something, and they'll have movie props on display, and I'm always amazed at how good they look on camera, but how they really don't look so great when you see them in person, you're like, wow, that doesn't look particularly impressive, because the camera misses a lot. I'm going to go ahead and move this over here where I can look at the camera while I'm talking to you guys. The cameras are like our eyes, they're light photon receptors. And photographing a model is an entirely different thing than when you're looking at one. That's why I bought the light box, so I could get these nice, properly lighted, all counter, gets rid of a lot of the shadows. But when you start doing things like green screening, chroma key, it gets really tricky. Then all you wind up using all these photographers' tricks. Even if you're just doing a garage production, all of a sudden you start understanding why CGI is so popular. Hey Garfield, thanks for making it. The Great White North. Mark, up in Helena. It's got to be getting cold. It'll start to cool off down there. 6 kits. Okay. Hey Mike, up in Vermont. Movie props. Yeah, because exactly right, because they were designed to absorb light. In fact, in the next little, I have enough pictures, as I was saying earlier, I have enough pictures now to do a short viewers build. Mark Tyler actually worked in the movies for a while doing miniatures. He still does some miniature cars and stuff, but he was telling me that he actually sent me some pictures that are in that build, or in the next video, of him on set. Apparently, there's a movie made in '91 called, I think it was Resurrection, it's a horror film. And when they got it out, when they wrapped and everything and got done, they realized they were missing the scene where the car drives away at the end. And he goes into some detail explaining. He was hired to make a 1/20th scale cabriolet and a piece of road. And he and four technicians, he and 3 other guys, spent a month making the car and getting the shot for a 6-second shot on the film of the car driving away in the rain. But to hire 4 technicians, have them do that for a month, was still cheaper than getting the cast and a production team out on site and doing it all over again. So there are times when models just work better, pay better. And of course, we all know the famous Star Wars movies were originally filmed using models. And on the documentary, they showed 4 technicians working 8 hours to get the scene of the speeder, the planet Hoth, where the thing that are attacking the Imperial Walkers just blows up, where it gets hit and you see the close-up blowing up. 1.5 or 2.5 seconds on screen, and it took 4 technicians 8 hours to get 2.5 seconds of film. Yet it's, often still cheaper than going out and doing it the other way. So models rule. And you did. Oh, Dr. Shock's X-ray chiller throw. I built props for the show. You got to tell us about that. Cardboard, wood. Damn it, Jim, I'm a carpenter. My favorite one is with the Horta. Damn it, Jim, I'm a doctor, not a brick mason. That should have been his episode. Damn it, Jim. I'll tell you what, while I'm here, I'll just change this camera angle. Watch your eyes one more time. We're going for another shift. Whoa! And I'll just plug that over there because I forgot I had this plugged in. And I relish my low production quality. Rotate device, no kidding. Whoops. Okay. Oh, wrong way. There we go. Give you guys a little change of scenery. Maybe I'm lighted a little better now. All right. At Hatbattle Hoth. It really is, and that's stop motion. Well, a lot of that was stop motion. I'm not sure, but I think Luke did some of it himself. At least there's some documentary footage of him doing some movements. Of course, that may have just been done so he could look what I did. Because far be it for me to assume anyone in Hollywood to be vainglorious. I was told the first victory was a Martlet against a Ju-88. I have heard that, and it's probably true. The British Wildcat, because I know they were doing a lot of fighting out over the waters before the battle actually got to England, so that's distinctly possible. Yeah, I did see that, and I think you sent me the pictures of it that included in there. I have to admit, when I first saw the mothership for the model from Close Encounters, which is at the Udvar-Hazy facility. I had mixed emotions. I had seen enough movie props at that time to know that it wasn't going to look anything like it does on screen. First, I'll be honest, I'm kind of surprised how small it was, but given that it's such the way it's presented on camera, but I guess their cameras can take incredibly crisp imagery. But a smaller model is easier to work with. So the first thing that surprised me was how small it was. And I mean, it's not small, but I expected it to be like the Enterprise, things, 11 feet and 4 inches or something. I expected it to be 6, 7 feet, and it's just a couple of feet across, maybe 3. I don't know, maybe I remember it wrong, but it didn't seem like it was that big. But when you look at it, you see how rough everything is, and you're kind of like, that really does, but like you say, it doesn't look on screen the way it looks to the human eye. And I don't want to say I was disappointed. I was just kind of surprised. It just wasn't what I expected. Of course, I'm not really sure what I expected, but I remember seeing, oh gosh, what was it? There were a couple other props. I saw some of the airplanes from Empire of the Sun at the Chino Museum, and one of the Zeros, you remember the 3 T-6 Zeros take off, one of them just explodes. The B-29 they used had an 18-foot wingspan on it, so that was a huge model. That's why it looked so good on screen. They just used forced perspective. That wasn't a lot of special effects. They just flew it by the people, but with the blank sky back there, nothing to measure it against, you assumed it was closer than it, because you think of it as big, so you assumed it was further than it was. But the Zero was just an RC Zero. Wasn't anything fantabulous about it. Of course, that scene where they come flying by in the Mustangs and the whole horsepower. Well, that P-51 pilot goes by, and I'm like, oh, God, airplane porn. One of my top 10 favorite movie scenes ever. But one thing a lot of people noted about that movie, Empire of the Sun, when the P-51s are strafing the Japanese airfield, was that the planes are way too close to where the bullets are. It's like they'd be shooting way out in front, but the planes are almost flying almost over. You see the bullets hitting the plane, goes scooting right by. That was not supposed to be done like that. For what I read, they actually were supposed to come by further out, but it was just a mistiming between the pilot and the special effects guys. They had intended to have that more accurate, but it's just not something you can just keep doing over and over again. Extremely expensive to shoot. One of the Mustangs winds up getting damaged or having engine trouble because you see it smoking, and you see towards the very end, you see this parachute come down the background. I'm like, dude, if I was that pilot, I'd get that parachute off and head for the tree line, because you just strafed the crap out of these people. You do not want to get captured by them. That's what we call a bad day. Oh, yeah, you didn't miss anything. Oh, good. 3 or 4 Canadians here. Oh, love it, love it, love it. You're very Kubrick Clockwork Orange style. Okay, I got to tell you the Clockwork Orange story real quick. My sister had the album and the LP back when we bought records, and I had no idea what this movie was about. And Clockwork Orange has that cover with the big the eye with the mascara looking at you and doing like, what is this about? And I remember opening it up, and it had some adult imagery inside, and I'm probably 12 years old. I'm like, whoa! Whole new world just opened up. And that's all we need to know about that. Reenacting the Battle of Britain. Well, I got to give them credit. You guys know that they used models for Dunkirk, and I know the movie Dunkirk had its issues. They always do. They can't not. I actually did a video on the making of the aerial scenes, but I think, given that it's a movie, personally, I think they did a really good job staying away from CGI as much as they could, using models, using real aircraft where they could. The thing that caught me a while to catch up was, okay, we're seeing the same thing from 3, 4 different points of view at different points in time. Once I caught up with that, I was okay. But the one part of that movie that I really appreciated is how they simply are talking there's 3 of them, and then they're talking on the radio and they can't find lead. And it's just, apparently, according to fighter pilots I know that served in the war, they're like, yeah, it just happens like that. They're not there on the radio anymore. No one ever saw what happened except the guy that got them. And it's just, poof. And I thought that was kind of eerie, but also very honest. So let's see here. We got, Yeah, can't say I ever saw all of A Clockwork Orange either. I kind of got, I was like, yeah, I'm not digging this. I remember it got banned. Yeah, I remember it got banned in some places. Given when that movie was made, I'll give, was it Kubrick? I think I'll give him credit. He was going where no one had gone before, but that was kind of what Kubrick did. Uh, we Canucks are experts on Bruce Seas. Yeah, I think that beer will be free because we found a mouse in the bottle. I love Strange Brew. I just um, so I put a lot of work into building a Guilo Stuka, and I've got the video up on YouTube. I just couldn't wait for the wind to die down, could I? Maiden flight. All my Guilo's conversions have cratered on the maiden flight, and I got no one. Of course, I did kind of overpower it, but I got no one to blame but myself. But then again, you look at the number of model German airplanes I've crashed and wrecked. I'm not sure, but I think I'm an Allied ace. Haven't touched the B-47 since we spoke last, and I didn't get a lot of study today like I said I was going to do. I just got wrapped up doing other things. Is that just not a sleek piece of beauty? I mean, I swear, if you made an airliner that looked like this today, it's just, I know when they're on the ground with that unicycle, that bicycle undercarriage, they look a little goofy, but in the air, some genius got the bright idea to use these to toss bomb, you know, where they come streaking in and pull up and then throw the bomb. And it just started raining here. They were finding wing spar cracks. And the Air Force decided, well, we'll just beef up the wings and keep going. And I know some officers that decided that their family loved them more than the Air Force did, and that was time to retire. But you realize this thing was being designed and flown when cars had tail fins on them this big. To me, that's just incredible. But the okay, I'm not reading the comment section here. I need to see what you guys are talking about. Oh gosh, of course I've seen Canadian training film. Yes, I've seen Strange Brew. Strange Brew, what's inside of you? Take off, hey! Nah, poser. Oh, okay. Canadian story. I used to go to Toronto all the time, probably twice a week. I used to overnight there. It was one of my favorite overnights. But one day if we stayed there less than 2 hours, we didn't have to go to customs. We were just doing a turn, and we're trying to get out. So I run down into operations because we're having trouble getting a release. And there's two bag handlers in there, and I swear, God is my witness, every other word was knob or hoser. Hey, you want to work? Hey, hoser, hey, knob. And I mean, I thought that they had like overplayed that in the movie. And the girl that was working in operations was almost a little embarrassed by it. And she was kind of like, what is she said? Something like, it's some comment to the effect of people who say that a lot of the time, or like people in America always saying, well, I ain't gonna do that, that sort of thing. And I was like, I don't know, I thought it was cute. But I mean, it was like every third word. Oh, you going, hoser? Hey, no, hoser. Okay, hoser. And if I get a dog, I'm gonna have to name him Hoser. Hosehead. That's the dog from Strange Brew. Hosehead. Take off. I'm trying to. Give me a release. Yeah, they filmed a lot of the Battle of Britain in what was the name of that Spanish air base? Tafalla or something like that. And yeah, you can't, you're trying to recreate 20, 30 years earlier. You're going to miss something. You're going to see somebody with a digital watch or a wrong car go by in the background. I was watching one movie, kind of a mid-level budget sci-fi flick, where Brad Johnson, I think, where I think it was the Philadelphia Experiment 2, somebody triggers a time machine, a stealth fighter that's going to Ramstein, winds up going back to World War II, so it lands in Ramstein with a couple of nukes, and the Germans catch it. Well, anyway, he's got to go back in time and stop it. And he goes back to where the stealth fighter, and they had this mock-up stealth fighter supposed to be in Germany in 1944. You got all the guys walking around in German uniforms and Kubel wagons, but they're parked in front of a brand new style A-frame prefabricated hangar. Like, well, that took me out of the movie. Sorry guys. I know it's supposed to be nighttime, but that's just too recognizable. And that's going to happen. What I find interesting is sometimes you'll see something like that and find that it's actually not an anachronism, that they actually did have something back then that you don't associate with that time period. Yeah, Max von Sydow is a great actor. Swedish, I think. Um, but I did see 4.5. Yeah, I think I'm calling the next one just 5.0. Just, oh yeah, Slapshot. Yeah, I remember that came out. I don't think I ever saw it. Yes, not only was the Luftwaffe repainted Spanish Air Force, but they provided most of the pilots. In fact, the only fatality in the filming of the Battle of Britain was a Spanish fighter pilot who was killed on a ferry flight to England, and no one ever figured out what happened. There's a suspicion, he was a young guy, there's a suspicion that he was off, because all the planes were they didn't come over in formation, they flew over one at a time, and a lot of people think that he was probably just out screwing around. And apparently that Bouchon, the Spanish copy of the Messerschmitt, could get away from you. Now, according to Connie Edwards, who was the one you see all the time getting shot down, he gave an interview a while back. He passed away recently. He was in his 80s. But there's a little bit of a story behind that. In fact, there's a big one. I got the book, The Making of the Battle of Britain. And yes, they made a book about the making of the movie. And they used a lot of models. And they're actually photographs. If you go to the Making of the Battle of Britain, I found some photos of the shop where they were building the RCs. The Stukas were radio controlled, and they had radio controlled everything: Hankels, Messerschmitts, the works. But for continuity's sake, they made the Messerschmitts the Spanish version so that they didn't look different than the ones they were actually flying, because obviously they weren't going to blow up real airplanes. And they were getting Spitfires and Hurricanes from all over the globe to put them together. And anyway, the Spanish were getting rid of their piston engine aircraft. They were transition jets, not the bombers, just the fighters. And their aircraft wrangler, who was, what was his name? Mahaty, famous British pilot, big figure in World War II. Mahaty was their primary aircraft wrangler. He had a lot of connections all over the world. Yeah, the camera plane they used was what they call the psychedelic monster, because the camera plane was a chopped up B-25, had camera portals all over it, some of which were remote, but the guy in the tail literally just hung out the tail. But they had all these wild colors and stripes on it, so the guys could use it, form up on. Gave them clear cues. And but they went to the Spanish and they were auctioning off all the airplanes, and it was a lot bid. Basically, had about all or none. And a couple of local Spaniards found out, they were trying to keep it quiet, but apparently found out a movie crew was looking at the airplanes, so they made a ludicrously high bid so they could get the planes and then try to make money, sell them to the movie company, because they figured they had a bottomless pocket, which, believe me, they did not. They were constantly trying to come up with more money to keep that movie going. It almost got shut down a few times. But anyway, fortunately for the guys making the movie, the people who had done their paperwork had done it wrong, so it was rejected, so they got the planes. But then there was the issue of spare parts, and one of the Spanish officers said, well, we've got a bunch of spare parts planes, junkers, that weren't part of the deal out here if you want to look at them. They go out there, and there's this treasure trove of partially dismantled Messerschmitt / Casa-made Messerschmitts. We'll take them, and they got them cheap. They took the whole kit and caboodle, took it over to England, and they were actually able to make, I think it was 4 flyable airplanes out of all this by cannibalizing the spare parts, plus they had plenty of spare parts. Now, a couple of planes had gear failures and cracked up during the making of the movie. That was to be expected. Connie himself had a fire and had to make an emergency wheels up landing. And in the movie, in my video, I said it was a Spitfire because that was what it said in the book. But when I saw Connie interviewed, he said it was a Messerschmitt. He was the one that was flying it, so I'll take his word for it. But here was the deal. Now, I kind of went there to go here. You guys may be familiar that a couple of years ago, a whole bunch of these Messerschmitts and Spitfires showed up in a hangar in Texas. And some of you probably already know where I'm going with this. Well, what had happened is Connie he was owed a lot of money and for everything he'd done. And Broccoli, same. This is Battle Britain was partly made by the same guy that made the James Bond movies, Cubby Broccoli, and Fisk, and a few others. Anyway, some of whom flown in the RAF. One, I think it was Fisk had flown, or Fish. I think he'd flown Hurricanes. Anyway, um, they uh, they said, we'll give you an IOU for the money, and we'll pay you once the money starts rolling. He knew better, and he'd done movies for us. He said, I wouldn't about to trust a Hollywood producer to pay, honor an IOU. So he made a deal with him. He goes, no, the Messerschmitt's already his, so he's like, I'm going to take the Messerschmitts. Give me my choice of Messerschmitts and one Spitfire. And he got the only two-seat Me 109 or Casa 1112, Bouchon. I think it was the only one they ever made. It was a trainer, and they still have it. He got that, and he got like 5, but he also got a bunch of engines, and he got a Spitfire. And he got to pick so he took airplanes and a little cash. Well, those are the airplanes that ended up, he and his son were going to rebuild them. Sadly, his son was killed in a traffic accident. But they've been sitting in relatively decent condition in Texas in a hangar since the 70s. And once his son had sadly been killed, and his grandson was only 2 or 3 years old, so he knew he had no one in the family. And he decided to go ahead and sell them off as a lot. And he goes, if you come in here looking for a bargain, don't. He knew what he had. He was a bit of an old codger, but he had every right to be. And he knew what he had. And he wasn't going to this wasn't a sweetheart deal. You were going to get one cheap. Most of the planes, ironically, were bought, from my understanding, were bought by Europeans and went back to Europe, where a lot of them are in various stages of restoration now. Some are probably already flying. And he also had a Catalina and a Mustang that was unrelated. He was, I think, an oil man, so he'd been collecting airplanes his whole life. A pretty impressive collection. You can go online and see it. I think it's the Connie Edwards collection. But that's, if you have any interest in aviation, that is the ultimate barn find, so to speak. And he got millions of dollars for each airplane. But I think the two-seater's already been restored and flying again. Little side note. After the war, the German ace Adolf Galland and Robert Stanford Tuck had become real close friends. And when they were on the movie, they were both there. And they said they apparently somehow Galland conned him into letting him take that two-seat Me 109. He tossed Robert Stanford Tuck in the back. He hadn't flown a Messerschmitt in 25 years. And they said the air show he put on scared the crap out of him. He was flying upside down over the field. I mean, man had not lost an inch. It was just, it was, and when he landed, then the producers found out, like, don't you ever let him go to the airplane again. Goddamn, he crashes. He's and but according to the people that were there, and there's some home movies on YouTube that people shot, just 8mm film. If you're interested in that, you should go see all the Texans walking around in German uniforms, smoking pipes, and playing mock Germans and everything. And but the only thing that throws it off in a movie that good you overlook it is, of course, it's got those Spanish Hispania Suiza engines, which make the front of the airplane look completely different. They got the 4-bladed props. Connie said that late model Spanish Messerschmitt outperform anything. Outperform a Mustang, outperform a Spitfire. Of course, it was a post-war design. You had the latest German fuselage with the latest British engine, so not really a fair comparison. I imagine they're probably stripped of armor plate. But the bombers in the movie were all flown by Spanish Air Force regulars. Those were regular Spanish Air Force pilots flying the bombers. That's why they could fly the formation so well, because they did it every day. And they weren't selling the bombers. So apparently England and Spain were having some political problems at the time, but the Spanish government was willing to overlook that because the movie company paid cash to bring the planes. There's some photos I found of everything. There's like 30 fighters and 20 bombers all parked out on the ramp. Like, man, you will never see that again. That was something. That was the last great gathering that many of those kind of airplanes. But it's all right. Enough me yapping about that. What else we got here? 8 bases of 8. Yeah, YB-35, YB-49. Don't forget Glenn Edwards got killed in one of those. That thing had a lot of lateral stability issues. Although it's a beautiful thing to model. I think a couple of people have made models of it. The funny thing is that the propeller version actually flew kind of okay. The props provided some gyroscopic stability. They wanted to have contra-rotating props, but those little boxes, gearboxes kept overheating. A spare 172 Spitfire 5B canopy. I don't think, no, I don't. Yeah, like the Irlac one of the train. Yeah, you're always going to find stuff like that. It's really hard to get all the details right. when you film a movie. One of the things that's kind of a little painful, I'm sure it was, when like the guys who were working in the model shop for the Battle of Britain, they had to make the wrong airplane. They had to make the Heinkel look like the real Spanish Heinkels and the Messerschmitts. And by the way, those radio-controlled Messerschmitts didn't have any wheels on them. They took off on little four-wheeled carts. I found a picture of one, and because they weren't planning to land them. Hello, Eduardo. Yeah, it really was. It was kind of the other one that stands side by side with the Battle of Britain, and I'm sure you've all seen it multiple times. Tora, Tora, Tora. And of course, there were no Japanese aircraft, so they had to make them out of American airplanes, mostly trainers. But and a lot of those are still flying, by the way. But that became a big problem when they did the dogfight scenes, because the P-40 just had so much more performance than the T-6. Also, exact same problem they had with when they did the Black Sheep Squadron, Black Sheep. The airplanes, of course, you see the scenes and you see the Corsairs flying with their flaps down so they don't overtake the T-6. And of course, we're using the same footage, but the part that was worse is when we'd cut in the archival footage. It's just, and it's the same footage we've all seen 100 times. But yeah, they were doing what they had with what they got. Some of the things about Midway, they didn't want to use models. They wanted to use all CGI, and they could have done anything. And they went through the trouble to make real TBD Devastators, and then they hung bombs on them along with the torpedo. I'm like, first off, that thing could barely get off the carrier slinging a torpedo. You had a pair of 500-pounders going to go in the water, and secondly, it didn't have those kind of bomb racks. It had bomb rack where the torpedo went, but it didn't have bomb racks out on the wings like an SBD did. They did have some little fold-up bomb racks that could hold little 100-pounders, but they could sling a 500-pounder. And I'm like, why did you guys even do that? You just detracted from the movie for no gain. Well, and some director, well, it looked cool. Oh, War of the Worlds, yeah. That was where you could see some really great footage of the YB-49. They're going to have the flying wing drop it. And that's one of my favorite parts of the movie. And that 1953 War of the Worlds. There are a handful of movies as a little kid that terrified the crap out of me. The 1953 War of the Worlds, the 1954 Godzilla, and the TV show The Invaders. And was it Roy Vincent, A Man Too Long Without Sleep? And when he sees the invaders, the whole idea of being out there by yourself, or the unstoppable, slow-moving force, those things, those hit humans right in the amygdala. Really well done. And by the way, you guys probably know they fished a couple of wildcats out of the while back out of the Great Lakes in the United States. I don't know if you guys have, and I think you can get models of the Sable and the Wolverine, and there are a couple of side paddle wheel excursion boats that were converted into training carriers. And a lot of T-6s would go in and shoot takeoffs and landings on them. The Navy could train in safe waters. If they went out in the Gulf, they might come across a real U-boat. And the SBD that's hanging up in the Midway Airport, which is named for the Battle of Midway, was one of them they fished out of the water. And they also got a Wildcat. And when they pulled that Wildcat out of the water, it's fresh water, it's extremely cold, fairly deep, so there's no microbes down there. And they fished them out, and they amazed how pristine the conditions are. And I think that Wildcat may be flying. But I have the squadron book on the Wildcat and on the B-17, and you don't appreciate how many different versions of that airplane, or any of these airplanes, were made. One Wildcat was a reconnaissance model. Only had 2 guns, had long-range fuel tanks, had a fuel dump on it, and I forget the designation of it, but the 004F or something. Anyway, they apparently it was pretty fast and pretty capable. Despite its looks, the Wildcat was faster than people seem to think. Not faster than Zero, but it was still pretty quick. And but it could actually go fast and maneuver. The Zero, got up over 300 miles an hour, and the controls were in concrete, which saved more than one American pilot. But the you want to see a bad idea? This came with the Val that I ordered a bunch of these airplanes. They're already made off some guy passed away. This is the one I I use as my spray gun practice target, and when I have questionable decals. But they actually did. They made a Devastator on floats, a wild catfish on floats, and a Helldiver on floats. And I know some old SBD crewmen who thought the Helldiver was a bad idea to begin with, but on floats, I mean, I'm sure they had a reason for it, but I told myself I was going to go ahead and restore this and make a nice kit out of it, but then I realized I didn't build it and I didn't modify it, so it'd kind of be like stolen valor. I'd be taking credit for somebody else's work. But now the one that they put on floats, by the way, was an early model with a 3-bladed prop and had the extra glass behind the pilot. Found an article on it and a photograph, and I don't know, maybe someday I will, but I don't have any glass for it. I actually pirated the canopies off of that and put them on another one that I was building that my nephew has. Hobbids. Oh, thank you. Yeah. This is what my bedroom would look like if I was still single. And my bedroom kind of did look like this, which is probably one reason for so long I was single. There was what was that TV show? I think it was an old British sitcom, Keeping Up Appearances with Hyacinth Duquet. And the episode where her sister, who's a bit of a tart, was coming and complaining that she'd been out partying. She picked up some guy and he goes, he asked me if I wanted to come to his place and see his model aeroplanes. And I said, "Why, of course." And she goes, and we went to his place, and sure enough, it was full of model aeroplanes. I could tell you anything you want to know about model aeroplanes. And I was like, wow, you're kind of hitting close to home on that one. 132nd, 69 Revell Hellcat? You mean Wildcat, right? Mint condition. I believe. Tell me if this isn't what you're talking about. Oh, and I just got this all cleaned up. Come on. We're live streaming here. I can't put up with any arguments. Are we referring to this? A lot of glare there, sorry. I actually wanted another airplane, and I ordered, this just came with it, because I have one. Can you see? Yeah, the box is right up there, just to the edge of the shelf. But haven't even done anything with it. This is, by the way, funny you should mention that. Now you'll notice that this has raised panel lines. You can feel them with your finger, which was very common back then. And of course, Trumpeter came up with their 1/32 scale F4, which they had to pull out the market because apparently they had a couple of big mistakes that they had to go fix. So kudos to them. The article was Modeling Madness or one of them, and the guy was saying that this kit, this old Revell kit that's back in production again, and it's the same kit, by the way, actually is selling better because it's a lot cheaper, and it's the philosophy is it's good enough. It makes a good solid display kit. Yeah, if you're a professional modeler, you're really, really anxious to have just everything perfect, you spend the extra money on the Trumpeter kit, but this makes a perfectly good kit, and it's not nearly as expensive, and it's still selling well, and apparently outselling the new Trumpeter kit. So, chalk one up for the guys at Revell. And it goes together really easily. It's one of the better Revell 1/32 kits. The Spitfire I had a lot of fitting issues, especially with the canopy, which just didn't fit. There was a huge gap, and I'm like, okay, I got the windshield in the right place, and I got the back canopy glass in the right place, and there was just a gap. The Messerschmitt had the exact same problem, and the Spitfire also had some wingtip issues, aileron or big air gaps with the ailerons. This one didn't have any of that problem, and this one has a folding wing that folds like the actual airplane, so you can detail that out if you want to. So chalk one up, like I say, for the guys at Revell. Actually, I was just reading that article today. Yeah, now the Zero they make is a little bit of a later war design. I think it's a 6M5 or something. It's the one that has the exposed exhaust pipes. The early Zeros, like Pearl Harbor Midway, the A6M2s, they didn't have the exhaust pipes sticking out of the cowling like they did on the later Zeros. Yeah, the one that's flying in California now, there's one that's flying with a Sakai engine, which is the correct engine. Oh, really? You know, with the Seafire? Okay, yeah, probably use the same molds. Um, but the one that has a Sakai, I assume it still is running. I've actually got a picture of me standing in front of that one at Chino. Um, that is one of the few truly authentic Zeros. Some of them are rebuilt from wrecked airplanes that are 70, 80% new aluminum. Just use the old one as a pattern. But apparently, as I understand it, I don't know if they were recoveries or ground up builds, but some company in Russia was hired to make 3 Zeros, which are doing the air show circuit, and rarely, sometimes they'll even get together. And they're all Pratt and Whitney powered. But one of the guys who was involved with that was telling me that they did a pretty sloppy job, and they needed a lot of work when they got back to get them up to speed. They there's some serious quality control issues. But there is one original Zero that can still fly, and some people argue it shouldn't be flown because it's just too valuable. But you can go either way on that. Pig Model Company, not ringing a bell. But I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this. And I was saying this morning, I was just talking about this model this morning. I'm considering the possibility of making it the Dash 3 model, which really just consists of making the wing not fold and making it smooth, because the Dash 3 Wildcat did not have folding wings, and it had 4 guns, but the guns had longer ammo belts. So, and a lot of the pilots, including Flatley and Thatch and them, I've read them talk about it. They preferred the earlier model with the 4 guns. It was lighter. Oh, my pleasure. And so here is the tentative plan. After tonight, I have 1 or 2 videos that are like the viewer build, and 1 or 2 other things that I want to get finished up and post them. But I won't be doing any of the morning or afternoon chats until I'm probably through my training, got that behind me. And if I wind up with some dead time and I don't have to study or anything, absolutely. Might even throw out an unannounced live stream just for kicks and giggles, because I don't know how this is going to play out. Tuesday and Wednesday, I have doctor's appointments. If that goes well, I phoned the company, put me back in the simulator. It looks like it's a 4-day training event. Then possibility, I think I'll have to, but it's a possibility I might even have to have another Fed ride, which is where the Fed just, the line check and then the Fed rides with you. It's just an observation thing, but I don't think I've been gone long enough for that to be an issue, but we'll see. And hopefully then, back to work, yay. But with the curtailing of the flying, all the lines with the beer bug, once this training's behind me, I'm probably going to have reasonable amount of time off so I can get back to producing some stuff and maybe doing some more, maybe not daily stuff, but so like I say, we're not going dark, we're just going dim. And that's the plan as it stands right now, so wish me luck. To be honest with you, I'm more worried about the doctors than anything else. When you're young, you go to the doctor's office, oh, give me my medical. When you're old, you're going to the doctor's office, what was it? Omni ADF. A 1-to-1 scale 88mm shell. It's huge, only 4 parts. That's an interesting thing to have there. When your friends are coming in, just sit there tapping the tip of it with a hammer. Yeah, me too. It's been a lot of fun. It's kept me sane during all this. And it's given me a reason to get up in the morning and do something. I think that's one of the things that hits people hardest, is you just, why bother to get up? Why bother to take a shower, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But, and, I feel like compelled, like, I've got to show some work progress or they'll think I've been slacking. Show you something about this Tremulous fighter. If I can get it without, they go, oh, and there goes the nose cone. Okay. Apparently this guy Tremulous designed this thing. Boost stage, send it up high altitude, and then the little fighter would pop off the tip. And of course there's a tail that goes on here. And This would be, I guess, rocket power to go down, knock down the bombers, and I guess fly back. But given that it was the early 1940s, that's some pretty Buck Rogers thinking. And probably beyond our technology at the time. But it's still, I like the fact that, you know, no shortage of, and somebody told me that the Tremulous was the guy who designed the Tucker. So, I don't know if that's true, but make what you will out of it. Oh yeah, I didn't make that one up. I heard that one from someone else. Oh, thank you. That's why we call ourselves glue troopers. Domino's Nabisco. My brother made a comment that was, he's an attorney, and my younger brother's an attorney in Mississippi, and he made an observation that was classic. He goes, yep, I'm a lawyer, you're an airline pilot. Formerly two, respected positions in society. Then this thing hit, and people are more worried about the pizza delivery guy and the truck driver. And now we know who's really important in society. Corona, oh God, they're not called a blast bed. But you know what? I'll bet you, although initially I heard their sales dropped, I'll bet you now the sales of Corona beer have probably gone up because God knows they've gotten more free advertising. I don't know, but what is that? If you guys will pardon a little blue language, have the kids cover their ears. But there's a meme floating around. It says, some people say wine, some people say bourbon, some say beer, but it's like alcohol, the glue that holds the 2020 shit show together. So because someone can't read simple instructions, this is the Rust-Oleum I bought. It's not the 2X. But that's for the Saturn V. But I'll probably go ahead and use it because I bought it. Or I might go get the 2X stuff. And then it turns out I find out we had some of the 2X in the garage the whole time. Probably not enough, but I was like, that's what I bought last time. I was like, I was wondering why it takes that 4 hours to bloody dry. But it puts a really nice coat on there. I hope they meant mango. Let's see. I'll just careful. We're going to move the camera again. Stand by for shaky cam. And tilt that down just a little bit. Here are a bunch of the other models that I made for the Midway video. Now, a few of them I bought. There's the Avenger. And I have a few others hanging from the ceiling. And one of the Wildcats and the SBD, the Buffalo, and a Devastator. That's the stand that came with that train wreck of a space station, so I just repurposed it for this. And then you have, oops, wrong way. There's my little Air Force. This is the Val that actually has the landing gears off of the Sonya on it, because I think I told you guys a story this morning, but this was the only airplane I wanted out of the lot. And the model, the 148 scale model Vals were stupid expensive. And I saw that there was an estate sale, and this guy had 10 models for sale. I guess his wife was selling them off, and she wanted like $10 for the whole box, or $20 the whole box. So I got it, and turned out this is the only actual one I actually wanted, and the landing gears had been knocked off and lost. So, but there was a Sonya that came with it that still had the landing. Oops, turn it the other way. Let's see if I can. Okay, doing this backwards. That's it up on the wall. Let's see. Nope, got to go up a little higher. Oh, you can see the tail of it. Oh, heck, why don't I just pick this thing up? That Sonya hanging right there, the blue one, was the one that I pirated the gears off of. And the 163 Comet and the Lysander and the rest of that stuff up there were all ones that were just in the box. I just got them hanging up there by a thread. And the guy actually did some fairly nice work. but I didn't really want to take credit for somebody else's builds, so I just hung them up there. And when like my sister's like, "Hey, do you have a model that a kid can have?" I just grab one of those and give it to him. It's kind of like the life cycle of a model. A lot of work to build it. Then after it's built, it goes on the shelf forever, and then at some point it winds up being some kid's toy and lives a very short life. Here's the glass case. These are the ones that my wife deemed were not sufficiently good to go in the house, because we have limited shelf space. So any model I build, she looks and goes yes or no. And there's that. I'm going to let's see if I can lower this a little bit. There's the Tyndall F-106, and it's a that is probably my favorite jet CF-106. I just think it's the sleekest looking thing ever. But I mean, now over here we have the Aurora, the old Aurora F8 Crusader. Let me see if I can. I don't know how well you guys can see that, but we gotta go a little more with it. Okay. Over here is the F8 Crusader. Can you even see that? I don't think so. You know, if I'd thought about it, I could have taken some of these out of the. I don't care what you think, you never have as much space as you think you do. Now this F8, you look at the front, you realize how lopsided or wrong that shape is. It just didn't have that big a head, a much smaller scoop. So the guys at Aurora were kind of noted for, oops. But I put it in the markings of the F8s that were based here in Jacksonville. And wow, there's a lot of glare. There, now you can see it. But that's the squadron that was based in Jacksonville. They actually had one crash out here. But the thing that made me buy that model a couple of times as a kid. Oh crap! Sorry. Here we go again. Was the box art. That's just some awesome box art. And I swear these kit model companies bordered on being recruiting, military recruiting posters, some of this stuff. And whoops, I'll just drop the camera while I'm at it. And there's a bunch of the tank and everything, and oh, this thing's a little behind. And the Luscombe, the red and yellow RC, is one that I built out of balsa. Oh yeah, F-106 Beauty. Oh, well, it's not a whole lot else up here to talk about or to do. Whoops, boom, and just dropped the iPad. Ah, what the heck. So, making holes in the stash. Give you guys a chance to see the. Now you can see these are the finished ones, and all of these up here are the done ones, and all of these are the stash to go. Here's the camera I normally shoot the videos with, just a standard Sony A65. You might have noticed an improvement in the quality of the audio over just the last couple of videos I did from here, which should be about on par with this one. What I started doing was, I already knew the technique, but I was a little lazy, and then John Kitt at Fast Sports is like, hey, you need to and he was like, do you use an external audio? And I was like, oh man, I'm just too lazy. But I finally, he got me to do it. So the quality of the audio is so much better now, because what I do is I plug into the cell phone and video with the cell phone using this lab mic. I also started, I'm not doing it today, but I would do t-shirts, and the last couple I had it under there. And it just gets so warm down here. And then I would just clap my hands and sync it to the camera, and it works beautifully because when you use this shotgun mic, unless you're right up against it, you get all that static air in the middle, and it gets that hissing noise. And audio is one of the things that's really important that gets overlooked by people when they make videos. But yeah, in fact, there's, here, let me just, Saturn V tower, let me just, whoops, nostril cam. Man, oh my gosh, when I'm holding this thing backwards, so. Okay. There's the, is that it? What am I looking at here? No, that's the, good Lord. I really need to give some tips. There it is. This is the Saturn V launch umbilical tower. I have some poster board to back it. I did get the base done-ish. And you have to build a structure underneath it. The paper won't hold it. And then you have the rest of the stuff. This thing is really complicated. There's like 20, I think I put a picture of it. There's like 20 sheets, and it's a lot of work, but it'll look so much better. Unfortunately, I had never worked with paper and poster board, well, not since high school, and some of it came out looking pretty bloody rough, so I'm going to have to clean all that up and paint it and everything. But still, I've seen some of you guys have some incredible Saturn V displays, and those definitely make a huge difference. Oh, good Lord. Yeah, the Vulcan. And I'm not mistaken, in Thunderball or whichever one it was, that I think that fake Vulcan they sank in the water, that 100% scale set, I believe it's still down there, and it's like a dive attraction, or at least it was for a while. I don't know if there's, of course, my guess is now a lot of people wouldn't. That's kind of sad, you're getting older when you talk about, oh yeah, the one they use in Thunderball, and they're like, what's Thunderball? You know, the James Bond. Oh, Daniel Craig. Let's see. Now, enemy aircraft overhead. Of course, I've got them hanging from the ceiling. That's a couple of TBDs that I used in the Midway thing. And there's a Hawker Sea Fury. That was one of them I got in that lot. And I forget why I painted it silver, but I just put it in racing plane markings. I mean, totally fictitious, using decals I had laying around. That's a wooden Dash 8 hanging behind it, and an old Hurricane. And I just can't bring myself to throw away a model, even if somebody else built it. And if I find a kid that wants to play with it, that's fine. But just the idea of just throwing one in the trash, I can't do it. But I've got this camera on an Osmo, which is great when you're holding the thing because it keeps the camera steady. But when I try to put it on the tripod and do it from backwards, I keep going in the wrong direction, which is why you guys are getting dizzy cam. Yes, I'm not wearing a mask. This is a social distance, but we're social distancing adequately, between here and the UK and Ireland and Europe. So we're in good shape on that. And I don't think you can catch the corona through email. Oh man, I'm not touching that one. You're a very bad boy. You're a bad man, Jerry. A very bad man. Yeah, when I grew up, the first time I went to a movie to see a James Bond movie, it was Roger Moore. I think it was The Man with the Golden Gun. And then I come out and thought about James Bond. They're like, oh, you saw Sean Connery? Who's Sean Connery? And so, I actually had Sean Connery on my plane one time. And he, by the way, did you guys know that Connery speaks fluent French? His wife is French, and that's actually their household language. He had a place in White Plains, New York, and another one in the Bahamas. And we used to do a nonstop between those two. And they of course, they brought his wife out. Of course, they didn't come out with general population. They came out with, God, general population's a prison term. They didn't come out with the rest of the passengers. They pre-boarded them straight from customs. But And they were very quiet, very polite, kept themselves, and smiled and everything. And they were speaking French the whole time. And butcher's English. What is he? Is he Scottish or Welsh? I forget. But he's also like 6'4". I mean, I'm 6'1", and I'm like, hell, welcome. Oh, hi. I had no idea he was that tall. And yeah, I think he was. Although I got to give Daniel Craig credit, he does a pretty good one. If you read the books, Roger Moore played him a little too soft. And I like Roger Moore, did a great job in The Saint, which is why I think he got cast as the new Bond. But apparently Connery couldn't find work after Bond because everybody thought he was too high priced. He wound up doing ridiculous movies like Zardoz, that costume with the red, whatever you want to call that thing, and the samurai bun. Man, if you ever meet the man, do not bring that movie up. But hey, he needed a paycheck. He's an actor. He's got to survive. And so, well, let's see. Next car model probably be the Polera. Next ship model will probably be the little tiny PT boat. Oh, by the way, since I just did the ODK video, I wanted to show you guys something. I'm glad I mentioned that. All right. This is the ODK PT boat, and it's a rubber band powered. As you can tell, not a terribly complicated model. And at least I think this one's rubber band powered, maybe not. But I know EDK, oh yeah. There's the instructions for the rubber band on back. And I had thought about building this in real time when we chatted, but I thought it'd be too much of a snooze. But in fact, I think I'll just put that on the desk. But the when I did the ODK video and I got done, I realized I'd left the tanks off, so I just kind of wedged it in there. So if you watch that video, ODK did do more kits than I showed, but not that many. And I love doing these little oddball companies that most people never heard of, but it's so hard to find any information on them. And usually when I'm done, somebody who knows something, oh, hold on, never mind. I get done and somebody like, oh no, so and so, I can put you in contact with somebody who knew something about it or imported them or knows the guy. And where were you a week ago? So I did manage to have a phone call with Nick Argento at Glencoe. I'm planning to do them at some point in the future, but I haven't been able to get him back on the phone. These guys, like Pete Vetri and Nick Argento that run companies like Atlantis and Glencoe, they are extremely busy. We build models and we love it, but when you make models, it is nothing but work. And I imagine any small businessman probably faces those same problems. And what was it? Somebody sent me, I actually put it in one of the videos. It was a hobby shop company executive who said that your dreams are our nightmares. And that's no exaggeration. I'm going to step a little closer and I can read these things. Okay, watch out. We're going to turn the camera again. Whee! Woohoo! Roar! Now let's see. I can just grab the old iPad and read them here. Fill your hand. Oh, True Grit. Best line in True Grit. Ned, I aim to see you hanged. Was it, I aim to kill you in 1 minute or see you hanged at Judge Parker's convenience. What'll it be? I call that bold dog for a one-eyed fat man. And I love the look on the Duke's face. On his eye. Genuine indignity. Fill your hand, you son of a... Yep, that's right. Sean Connery, who, by the way, I think it actually started off as a circus acrobat. He did work as a model for a while, which is actually not uncommon with actors. Oh, thank you, Andy. Stagecoach Searchers, classics. By the way, bit of trivia. At the end of The Searchers, just as they're showing that last scene, and there's a guy who does this analysis of movies, because a lot of things in movies that we don't catch have a significance, where you see the Duke holding his arm like this as the door closes. Apparently that was a nod, I believe it was to Harry Carey, who used to do something like that all the time. But that whole scene, he talked about the significance of that scene where the door is closing, the Duke's outside. And it's basically that the door was closing on the Old West, but also the reason the Duke didn't come inside was he was basically an old Confederate soldier who had no place in the modern world. And a more updated version of that, one of my favorite television shows ever is Firefly, and the following movie, Serenity. And I can never say the actor's name right, Elijah Iwafor, however you say his name properly. He plays the operative when him and Mal are talking to each other on the video phone, the video comm, and he says about, so me and mine got to lay down and die so you can live in your perfect world. And he the operative very clearly says, I'm not going to live in it, Mal. There's no place for me there. And I'm thinking that, sadly, is almost the what's the word? The role of the founder or the builder. The people who settled the West, the people who built the airlines, the people who created these great things. They create them, but they don't have the temperament to live in them. And that's kind of a sad irony about many of the great figures in life. Like they said, one of the best things that probably happened to General Patton was his death right after the war, because sooner or later he would have said or done something stupid that would have gotten him in trouble. Yeah, Westerns do have some of the best one-liners. Don't get me started on Firefly or Westerns or space Westerns, because I've read a lot of the books and everything on and the beauty of when you read the books on the making of some of these movies and television shows is that you understand what the idea was behind it. Star Trek was sold, because Star Trek was being made back when Westerns were big. There were like 17 Westerns on television in the mid-'60s when they tried to kick off Star Trek. And Roddenberry sold it to the network as a wagon train to the stars. Now, for those who aren't familiar, the television show Wagon Train, which, by the way, where Clint Eastwood got his big break, Wagon Train, although Ward Bond was the main actor and he was an old friend of the Duke's, although I understand he's kind of a tough guy to get along with, but anyway, it's neither here nor there. He actually he and the Wagon Train served as little more than a backdrop for it's almost an anthology series, because every week they would have a different character that would come in with some story. So Star Trek was the same idea. Even though every episode was Star Trek, you had your same base actors, they had a completely different, unrelated adventure, usually involving someone else in virtually every episode. And so even though it was episodic television, you look at Star Trek or Wagon Train, they're done more like anthology series. Although some episodes would link back to others, but generally speaking, they were, I have no place there, exactly. I don't kill women and children. I do, Mal. That was, not to mention all the Whedonisms. She is damaging my calm. Everything shiny, Captain. That's probably what Patton would have pushed him to do. Why did the Duke use his own horses? He also used his own guns. Are you guys familiar with the story about his guns? Somebody trying to steal his guns from his house while he was on his boat? Only the Duke would buy a surplus World War II minesweeper and turn it into his personal yacht, which, by the way, you can still tour today. It's in California. And by the way, did you know that the Duke was an excellent bridge player, the card game bridge? Apparently he was extremely good at it, played it a lot on his boat. The Duke, it wasn't actually uncommon for a lot of actors to provide their own stuff. Real quick before I forget, Roy Rogers owned Trigger. And I didn't appreciate this because I always saw it in syndication. My sister was a huge horse person, but she verified this. Trigger was really what people were tuning in to see. The Singing Cowboy, by the way, Roy Rogers is from Ohio. So the whole Western thing was essentially, he knew how to ride and shoot and all that stuff. but he was not from the Old West. He moved out there. He started off as a singer, Sons of the Pioneers, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, but when he saw how popular Trigger was, he bought Trigger, and that was an expensive horse. It was like $10,000 back in the 50s or whatever. That's about 150 grand today. But I don't even know how to play bridge. Yeah, that's right, in Victorville, unless they moved. I think they may have moved out of Victorville. But anyway, so Roy Rogers bought the horse, and when he ran into salary negotiation issues with the networks, oh, we'll fire you. We'll put somebody else on that horse. You know, we can put any cowboy on there. And he said, no, I own Trigger. And the fact that he owned Trigger was why he was able to make a lot of the demands. He was a very shrewd businessman, owned a lot of property, invested in a lot of stuff. The guy was smart. And by all accounts, a really decent human being, too. Very rare thing in Hollywood. But shrewd, but with a conscience. And he and Dale Evans, I mean, Roy, by the way, his real name was Leonard Sline, if I remember correctly. Good thing he changed it. And he was for a while involved with the Roy Rogers restaurant chain, but the food got so bad he disassociated himself. But I always respected him. And if you remember the video I did where I dropped the stagecoach off to my old shooting buddy, Wild Bill, if you know his background, a ton of Roy Rogers memorabilia. He went out there. He met Roy, had his picture taken with him, and wound up buying 4 or 5 of Roy's guns while he was there. Because Roy he had a collection of revolvers, and he'd sign them and everything. So he's got the signed box and the whole 9 yards. And one time he let me handle it, so I'm very blessed. He gave me a pair of cotton gloves to put on. I was able to fondle the revolver, which I think was a 44-40, and he said, "Do not pull the hammer back." He didn't want to get a ring around the cylinder from the hammer being pulled. Those guns are as virgin as they get in these fine wooden boxes. He also bought a rifle, and he was talking about how much money he was liberated of. And I was like, dude, come on, you know you love it, you know. That would be like one of us getting a chance to buy Superman's cape. Just trying to adjust this just a little bit, but the same thing happened with the Duke. He owned a lot of his own stuff. That yellow kind of bone grip pistol he had, and all that was his stuff. Well, apparently at one point somebody tried to break into his house and steal his guns. I don't think they were able to because the safe was too big and too well done, but somebody called the cops and chased him off. But he had an alarm set up there, and he recorded the alarm. So if somebody broke into his house after that, it would go in his voice, "I know what you're trying to do, Pilgrim. Don't waste your time. The cops are on the way." I was like, I'd have broken into his house just to hear that. It's a lot better than an alarm. But one of my favorite lines from the Duke. Okay, real quick, write down your favorite Duke line. Mine, from True Grit, with Glenn Campbell and LaBeef. Glenn Campbell's, yeah, this, and I was with Kirby. And he starts bad-mouthing, I think Bedford Forrest, I think was or Quantrell is who Rooster had ridden with. And he started, I just heard a bunch of bushwhack stuff, and he just like, I've heard something. And LaBeef won't leave it alone, and the Duke just goes, LaBeef, if you want trouble, I'll accommodate you. Elsewise, let it go. Or let it be. And I was kind of like, oh man, I still use that. Somebody starts getting on my nerves with it. You want trouble? I'll accommodate you. Elsewise, let it go. Tell me that wouldn't mean. I do it like this. You want trouble? No, you got to be more laconic. More like, you want trouble? I'll accommodate you. Elsewise, let it go. I'm giving myself chills. Man, I usually steal my phrases from the best of Hollywood writers. By the way, you just mentioned the Rat Patrol. Yeah, it's fun when you're 12. You're right. It's great when you're a kid. When you're an adult, you're like, oh my God, that's bad. But sadly, I think you guys probably already know that that Jeep rollover where that steering wheel hit Christopher George in the chest, it did that scar tissue that came from that was why he had a heart attack when he was 51. And they confirmed that there wasn't even a question about that. It wasn't I heard the doctor was like, no, this is old scar tissue and it came from that accident. So basically, although it took another 25 years to catch up to him, he was killed doing that show. And I had a 43 Willys Jeep, the Willys MB. Well, hold on. Hang tight, I'm coming right back. I had one of these. I didn't have the rag top for it, but I even had the cable cutter. And I didn't build this as a 1/18 die cast. But I wish I could make one this good. Well, thank you, partner. But these things were top heavy. They rolled real easy, so you had to be super careful. There was a reason they put a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit on it. I don't know if you can read that, but top speed, max 45 miles an hour. Wanted Dead or Alive, that cut down Winchester. Yeah, I think that was a 30-30. That was something they completely made for that. Actually, incredibly impractical. But you know, Zoe on Firefly carried something very much like that, clearly inspired by it. Whoa! Okay, all right. Almost dropped it. Kelly said, oh, God. Always with the negative vibes, Moriarty. Always with the negative vibes. Oh, man, it's a rotten thing to say. Hey, you're not in the nut house again, are you? Oh, man, that's an awful, terrible, rottenest thing ever. Donald Sutherland was a character that just did not belong in that movie, but I got to admit, he is incredibly amusing and well acted. Yeah, the Rat Patrol got banned in a couple of countries because it was, it was an American production for the American audience, and I'm like, come on, that would have been the Brits, that would have been the SAS out there doing that, and they put a British sergeant with them in there, and I'm like, yeah, it's not the same thing. But it was. I can understand why people would be sensitive about that. By the way, well, I'll give you a flip side of that. Hogan's Heroes, apparently it aired in Germany as the Sergeant Schultz show. So at least for a while. And those with loaded guns and those who dig. I actually used that in a video I did. Somebody did this beautiful Game of Thrones cover, but they did it in a Western fashion. And I put it over that gunfight at the end. And that's the last thing I had in the videos where he says that. There are two kinds of people, my friend. Those who come to the door, and those who come to... There are two kinds of spurs. Those who come to the door, and those who come to the window. That was the last of the trilogy movies. It was great. I don't drive them, I just fix them. Oh, that's... I know that. Oh, well, yeah, Oddball. I don't know what makes them go. I just ride the things, man. I don't know what makes them go. But another great one, of course, was Trinity. Probably my favorite episode is Shindig, which was a knock on the old slave South, where he gets in the sword fight with a guy at the end. When he's got him down on the ground, he goes, mercy is a sign of a good man. He pokes him with the sword. I guess I'm just a good man. He pokes him again. Well, I'm all right. Joss Whedon knows how to work a script, and those are what they call Whedonisms. Everything's shiny, Captain. Jane's best one-liner in that probably was when they're getting chased by the Reavers. Gosh, Al, sure it'd be great if we had some grenades, because earlier Mel don't take no grenades, Jane. Wow, I sure wish we had some grenades right now. Firefly, when you watch how fast-paced that show is, it packed a lot in an hour. And, all right. Well, I appreciate you staying with us, Asbo. You have a good night. I'm going to be signing off here in just a minute. We're coming up on an hour and a half. And I am going to have to sign off here shortly. But I wanted to make sure that everybody got a chance to get the comments in and stuff. I'll go back and read the comment stream later, because I'm sure I've missed 90% of them. I'm too busy being entertaining. I'm an actor. An actor. And by the way, I've worked on a couple of movies. If you've ever worked with actors, a lot of them, the fastest way to kind of ruin a character sometimes is to meet the actor that played them. And it's a true sign that they're a great actor, because they can bring this character to life. But remember, that character is an affectation. They're not a real person. And it's rare that you're not at least a little disappointed when you go, go ahead. Well, guys, I guess we're coming to the last couple of minutes here. I think I touched on everything. Oh, I did get the wheels glued back on. It's the 65, and I stripped off all that chrome down there. So there was the rear wheels that popped off. They're here to stay this time. And there's that little A5 that got from the first one of the kits I got from Mr. Hamilton that I built. That is just a cool little airplane. You know, although I probably couldn't fit in one. If I could find a vintage airplane to bring in an air show, something like that, you know, because I don't even know if there's any of them left in museums. But, oh, I'm stalling because I don't want this to end, but it has to. Oh, this has been great. Well, like I say, we'll still be getting together. Guys, I am, like I say, I've got a couple videos on the way, so there'll still be a few things popping up on the channel. I want to thank everyone for tuning in, and also just for all the support, and for all of you who have sent stuff to me. I cannot thank you enough. I'm still gobsmacked by all that, and it's kept me motivated and kept me doing these things. And so wish me luck on my medical doctor stuff and retraining, and perhaps at some point, since we can live stream from just about anywhere with decent internet, if I am out on the road, maybe I can live stream from a remote location down in, oh, thanks, I appreciate that, Chris. But perhaps I can even live stream from Puerto Rico or something. And we will see everybody later. You guys be safe. Stay sane throughout the beer bug, and hopefully here's to in a few months, life getting back to what we call normal. Thanks once again, and we will see you on the interweb.